One question, 5 words, and the defendant's entire defense fell apart instantly. The courtroom cameras captured every moment. The self-assured smirk on his face, the relaxed lean against the podium. The way he believed he had everything under control, and then Judge Frank Caprio glanced up from the case file, made eye contact, and asked a question so simple, so straightforward that the man's smile didn't just fade, it disappeared. His shoulders slumped. His eyes flicked nervously. The entire room felt it. Something had shifted, and there was no turning back. This wasn't about the parking ticket anymore. This was about honesty, about integrity, about what happens when someone underestimates the quiet authority of a man who's seen it all. The man standing at the defendant's podium that morning in Providence Municipal Court had no clue what was coming. His name was Marcus Chen, a 34-year-old software developer who had racked up 7 unpaid parking violations over 18 months. 7 tickets, each one ignored, each one dismissed in his mind as trivial bureaucratic nonsense not worth his attention or money. He entered the courtroom radiating the kind of confidence that comes from never being held accountable, designer sneakers, an expensive watch, a smirk that suggested he had already scripted how this would go. He planned to charm the judge, maybe crack a joke, claim he was too busy, too important, and leave with nothing more than a slap on the wrist. But what Marcus didn't realize was that Judge Frank Caprio doesn't play that game. The bailiff called his name. Marcus sauntered to the podium as though he were strolling into a cafe, not a courtroom. He looked around, cameras rolling, court staff watching, other defendants waiting. He seemed to savor the attention. Judge Caprio sat behind the bench, reviewing the case file with the meticulous care he gives every person before him. He didn't look up right away. He never did. He let the silence settle first. Let people feel the weight of where they were. Let them understand this wasn't just paperwork. This was accountability. Finally, the judge looked up. His eyes were kind, yet impossibly sharp, locking on Marcus. And that's when most people felt it. The shift, the realization that this wasn't going as expected. "Mr. Chen," Judge Caprio said, his voice calm, nearly gentle. 7 parking tickets, 18 months. Not a single payment, not a single call, not one attempt to resolve this. Can you help me understand why? Marcus's smile broadened. He had been waiting for this. Your Honor, honestly, I've been overwhelmed with work. I run a tech startup. We just closed a funding round, and these things slipped through the cracks. You know how it is. The judge didn't react, didn't nod, didn't smile, just watched. Let the words hang in the air. You know how it is, Judge Caprio repeated slowly, as if tasting the phrase. I do know how it is, Mr. Chen. I know how it is when someone works hard. I know how it is when someone struggles to pay bills yet still takes responsibility. I also know how it is when someone believes the rules don't apply to them. The room grew quieter. Marcus's smile wavered for a second, but he recovered. I didn't mean it like that, Your Honor. I just meant, how much did your startup raise? The judge asked. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? My funding round. You said you just closed it. How much? Marcus hesitated. This wasn't in the script he'd prepared. 2.5 million. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. Let that number settle. $2.5 million and 7 unpaid parking tickets totaling less than $400. $2.5 million, the judge said, tone unchanged. And in 18 months, you couldn't find $400 to pay what you owed the city that provides roads, infrastructure, public services. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It wasn't about the money, Your Honor. It was about respect. Respect for the law, respect for the community, respect for those who follow the rules, even when it's hard, Judge Caprio interrupted with surgical precision. And that's when the judge asked the question that changed everything. He leaned forward slightly, hands folded on the bench, and looked Marcus in the eyes. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, but every person in that courtroom heard it. Mr. Chen, do you think you're better than everyone else here? Silence. Not empty silence, but full of truth, full of exposure, full of a question stripping away every excuse, every justification, every mask. Marcus's face went pale. The smile he had worn like armor vanished completely. His mouth opened, no sound emerged. He looked down at the podium, then at the judge, then at nothing. He started, but couldn't finish. Judge Caprio didn't break the silence. He waited, because the answer was written all over Marcus's face. Marcus did think he was better. He thought his success, wealth, and busy schedule exempted him. Now, facing a judge who had spent decades seeing through people, that truth was laid bare. The judge let the moment breathe, then continued, voice calm and measured. I've been doing this a long time, Mr. Chen. I've seen people arrive who can barely afford to eat, yet still pay what they owe. I've seen single mothers working 3 jobs show up on time, dressed respectfully, ready to take responsibility. Then I see someone like you, who has everything and chooses to ignore obligations because what? Because you're too important. Marcus's eyes glistened, not with defiance, but with shame. Real, unfiltered shame. Your Honor, I'm sorry. Truly. I didn't think about it that way. I made a mistake. Judge Caprio leaned back. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill once. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. 7 times. And the only reason you're standing here now is because the city finally forced you. The room was so silent you could hear the faint hum of the fluorescent lights. I'm going to ask you something else, the judge said. And I want you to think carefully before you answer. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. If you saw someone parked illegally in a spot reserved for people with disabilities, would you think that was acceptable? No, Marcus replied immediately. Of course not. Why not? Because those spaces are for people who genuinely need them. It's not fair to take that away. Judge Caprio nodded. You're right. It's not fair. And when you park illegally, block a hydrant, occupy a loading zone and refuse to pay, you're doing the same thing. You're saying your convenience matters more than the system that exists to help everyone. You're saying the rules apply to others, not to you. Marcus's shoulders slumped. He looked like a completely different man than the one who had walked in 15 minutes earlier. I understand, Your Honor. Truly, I do, and I am sorry. But Judge Caprio wasn't done. What happened next would be the moment that went viral. The judge picked up the case file, flipped through the pages, and then set it down. He looked at Marcus with an expression both stern and compassionate. Do you want to know what bothers me most about this case? Marcus nodded, bracing himself. It's not the money. It's not even disrespect for the law. It's the missed opportunity. Marcus's brow furrowed. Opportunity? You're a smart man, Judge Caprio said. You built a company. You raised millions. You have resources, influence, connections. You could make a tremendous difference in this community. But instead, you walked in here thinking this was beneath you, assuming I'd be some pushover who'd let you off with a smile and a handshake. The judge paused. Let that sink in. You have everything, Mr. Chen. And yet, you've learned nothing about humility, about gratitude, about being part of something bigger than yourself. That is what saddens me. Those words hit harder than any fine ever could. Marcus's eyes filled with tears, not from fear of punishment, but because he had been seen, truly seen, and he didn't like what reflected back. Subscribe to this channel now. You need to see how this concludes. Don't miss what Judge Caprio does next. It's not what you expect. Judge Caprio took a breath and continued. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to require you to pay the full amount for all 7 tickets. No reduction, no payment plan. You can afford it, and you will pay it today before leaving this building. Marcus nodded quickly. Yes, Your Honor. Absolutely. But that's not all. Marcus looked up, uncertain. You will also write a personal check for $1,000 to the Providence Community Fund. This fund supports people in the city struggling, people who don't have $2.5 million, people who need help with rent, medical bills, school supplies for their children. Marcus's eyes widened, but he didn't protest. Yes, Your Honor. And one more thing, the judge said, voice softening slightly. I want you to return here in 6 months. Not because you're in trouble, but because I want you to tell me one thing you did to give back to this community. One act of service. One moment putting someone else's needs before your own. Can you do that? Marcus's voice cracked as he replied, Yes, Your Honor. I will. I promise. Judge Caprio nodded. Good. You have a chance here, Mr. Chen. A chance to be more than just successful. A chance to be decent. To be kind. To be the kind of person who makes the world better, not just wealthier. Don't waste it. Marcus wiped his eyes, nodded, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, looked genuinely humble. Thank you, Your Honor. I won't. As Marcus turned to leave, Judge Caprio called out one last time, Mr. Chen. Marcus turned back. I believe in second chances, but I also believe how you respond to being called out defines who you truly are. Show me I was right to give you this opportunity. Marcus nodded, speechless, and walked out a different man than he had walked in. The courtroom remained in stunned silence for a moment. Then slowly, a few people began to clap. Not loudly, not for show, but quietly, respectfully, acknowledging what they had witnessed. Not a performance, not a viral moment engineered for clicks, but real justice, the kind that transforms people. Judge Caprio didn't smile or bask in the moment. He simply picked up the next case file and called the next name. For him, this wasn't about fame. It wasn't about going viral. It was about doing what he had done for 50 years, holding people accountable while treating them with dignity. What happened in that courtroom that day wasn't just about a parking ticket. It was about leadership. About the distinction between power and authority. Power demands. Authority earns. Judge Frank Caprio had earned every ounce of respect in that room. Not by yelling, not by humiliating, but by asking one simple question that cut through all the noise and forced someone to see themselves clearly. Marcus Chen left the courtroom, paid his fines, wrote the check, and walked into the streets of Providence with his head down. But something had shifted within him. The question Judge Caprio asked, "Do you think you're better than everyone else?" echoed in his mind long after leaving. In the weeks that followed, Marcus couldn't shake it. He began noticing people differently, the barista making his coffee, the janitor in his office, the person struggling to parallel park on his street. He started to truly see them not as background characters in his success story, but as individuals with their own struggles, dignity, and worth. 3 months later, Marcus arrived at a local nonprofit offering coding classes to underserved youth. He didn't announce himself, didn't seek recognition. He simply signed up to volunteer. 2 nights a week, he taught teenagers how to code. He listened to their stories. Learned their names. Showed up not because a judge commanded it, but because that question had planted something inside him. That seed had finally begun to grow. When the 6-month mark arrived, Marcus walked back into Providence Municipal Court. He wasn't summoned. He wasn't required. He chose to come. He stood at the same podium where his confident smile had vanished. And he told Judge Caprio what he had accomplished, not with pride, but with quiet gratitude. Judge Caprio listened, nodded, and spoke 4 words Marcus would never forget: "I'm proud of you." That moment, when a man who had everything yet had learned nothing was given the chance to become someone better, became the defining moment not just in Marcus's life, but in the legacy of a judge who understood that justice isn't only punishment, it's transformation. Comment below, what would you have said if Judge Caprio asked you that question? And subscribe. This channel highlights moments that remind us what real leadership looks like. The video of that exchange spread across the internet like wildfire, millions of views, thousands of comments. People worldwide watched the moment Marcus's smile disappeared and felt something stir within them. Because that question, "Do you think you're better than everyone else?" wasn't only for Marcus. It was for all of us. How often do we walk through life believing our problems matter more, our time is more valuable, our struggles more legitimate? How often do we dismiss others because we've convinced ourselves we're different, special, exempt? Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom became a mirror. And what people saw wasn't always comfortable, but it was real. And that's why it mattered. Leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. It's about seeing people not as cases, not as numbers, not as obstacles, but as human beings capable of change. Judge Caprio possessed that gift, and he used it not to elevate himself, but to elevate others. In a world obsessed with viral outrage, public shaming, and performative justice, Frank Caprio offered something different: accountability with compassion, firmness with respect, truth with grace. That's why his courtroom became more than a place to pay fines. It became a place to find yourself. Years later, Marcus Chen would tell the story to his own children. He would describe the judge who didn't yell, didn't lecture, didn't humiliate, but still changed his life with 5 words. He would explain that the most important question to ask yourself isn't, "Am I successful? Am I smart? Am I winning?" The most important question is, "Am I decent?" And if the answer is no, or you're unsure, then it's time to stand in front of your own mirror, just like Marcus, and let the truth reveal who you really are. That's where change begins. Not with excuses, not with justification, but with honesty. Judge Frank Caprio understood this. Every person who entered his courtroom, whether they realized it or not, left with the opportunity to be better, not because they were forced, but because they were seen. Sometimes being truly seen is the most powerful form of justice. The impact of that single question, "Do you think you're better than everyone else?" rippled far beyond Marcus Chen's life. In the weeks after the video went viral, Providence Municipal Court received thousands of emails. Some thanked Judge Caprio for reminding them what accountability looks like. Others admitted they had seen themselves in Marcus: the arrogance, the dismissiveness, the belief that rules were negotiable if you were smart or successful enough. One email came from a corporate executive in Chicago, fighting a speeding ticket for 6 months, convinced it was beneath him to appear in court. After watching the video, he paid the fine and wrote an apology to the clerk. Another came from a college student cheating on exams, rationalizing it because everyone did. She turned herself in to her university's honor board. The question became a mirror, and people couldn't look away. But not everyone learned the lesson. Some viewers saw only what they wanted, a judge being too soft. They argued Marcus should have been jailed, fined more, punished harder. They missed the point entirely. Judge Caprio's courtroom wasn't about cruelty. It was about transformation. Punishment without the chance to change is just revenge, and revenge doesn't make the world better, it just makes it louder. Judge Caprio knew what many forget: shame can destroy, but it can also awaken. How it's delivered matters. Yell at someone, humiliate them publicly, tear them down without a path forward, and you create bitterness. Ask a question that forces self-reflection, give them a chance to rise, and you create growth. That's leadership. That's wisdom. That's what 50 years on the bench taught Frank Caprio. He never sought fame. He never wanted to be a viral sensation. In fact, when the video first gained attention, he was uncomfortable. His daughter convinced him it was good for people to see justice rooted in humanity rather than bureaucracy. He agreed only because he hoped it would inspire other judges, leaders, anyone in power, to ask, am I using authority to elevate people or merely assert control? In the months that followed, Marcus Chen's transformation became a case study in redemption. He didn't just volunteer, he became a board member. He used his tech skills to create a free platform connecting underserved students with mentors in the industry. He started a scholarship fund for kids unable to afford coding boot camps. Whenever asked why, he told the same story: the judge who asked one question that changed everything. But here's what most people don't know: 6 months after that second court visit, Marcus received a handwritten letter from Judge Caprio. It said little, only a few lines, but they mattered. Mr. Chen, I've been following your work in the community. You've proven that second chances aren't given, they're earned. And you've earned yours. Keep going. The world needs more people like the man you're becoming, not the man you were. FC. Marcus framed the letter. It hangs in his office today, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that the best version of yourself is always one question away. And the people who truly care about your growth are the ones willing to ask it.